Let's call the regular meeting of the Design Review Subcommittee to order on Wednesday, September 14th. And first item of business is the approval of the minutes. And it says here that you're going to bring those this time, or?
It says
Not
not.
till the
notices-
28th, I think it is.
Those minutes from the last meeting are not ready, so they'll be at the next meeting.
Okay. So we don't have anything to approve.
No.
Makes that easy. All right, we've got 3 items, it looks like, on the agenda today. The first one is the minor cultural heritage permit, 22049, for Casa Romanica Amphitheater improvements. And let's go ahead with the staff presentation.
All right.
David?
Thank you. Good afternoon. We have the project team here. We have Amy, Executive Director from CASA. Amy, you want to introduce everyone else?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and
This is our board president, Ruth Denal, joining us here today.
Thank you.
And then our architect, Gary Wiggle.
there we go. Yes. So again, it's a minor cultural heritage permit for some improvements at the amphitheater at Casa Romantica. We all know where this site is at. It's just a nice picture showing the front elevation of the property. And as it shows in the memo, this was Ole Hansen's original home and now operates as a cultural arts center with gardens, and they provide cultural, art, and educational programs throughout the site, including the amphitheater. So the scope of work, what they're proposing is a new shade cell structure over the amphitheater, some changes to the stage at the amphitheater, mainly to make it flush to the ground and meet ADA requirements, and outdoor lighting, which would be below the shade cells. So here's an aerial view just to give us an idea of where that project area is. It's highlighted. It's on the north side of the property, close to the multifamily development to the north of that. So I'm going to just show some existing conditions. I was able to go out there and take some pictures. Thank you, Amy, for access to the site. So this is, again, viewing the ocean. You can see the first row of seats to the right. As you work your way down, this is a view of the seats. And when you turn right, you can see the stage there down at the bottom. And then this is the current condition of the stage. So again, one of the items here is to lower that, remove it, and make it flush to the ground to meet ADA requirements. And maybe, Gary, after the presentation, you can add more to that as to the reasons why that was more feasible. So this is the proposed design of the shade cell structure. We have a series of steel posts with fabric sails. And here's another rendering. These tents are just shown here. This is not part of the proposal. It's just shown to kind of show scale, give a sense of scale.
Or is the background on the stage?
In the background. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then neither is this part of the proposal. So this is existing, and then the proposed project is the sail structure.
Is the way they're going to attach is that how that's going to look?
That's a proposal, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. Some color options within the set of plans are here. So we have the color swatch for the fabric on the left side, and the color swatch for the steel post on the right. Gary, if I'm correct, there hasn't been a decision made yet. You guys are waiting for feedback on the design, right? But these are the options. So as we read in the report, the Peerable specific plan requires Spanish colonial revival architecture at the site for any new structure and major remodel. And that's one challenge that we're facing here as the applicant. Again, they're proposing something that's more contemporary. When you look at the Secretary of Interior standards, right, these are standards that we have to make as part of this review and approving the permit. we could justify and say that this project meets those standards, but the challenge here is that the specific plan requires Spanish colonial revival architecture. So we see how those two are not in line. So in applying and enforcing the requirement in the specific plan, this is what staff had shared with the project team as what would be compatible. The applicant has some concerns with this design regarding costs and other items that I'll let them share and talk about, but this is something that we went over with them, and we're looking at examples from the St. Clement's Church. They did something similar to this. And then this is an existing trash enclosure cover, somewhere downtown. I think it's on Granada. This is another example that staff shared with the applicant as something that would be compatible with Spanish colonial revival architecture. And so staff and the project team are seeking feedback from the design review board and also to get some direction or information on the applicability of the SCR requirement for this project. So that concludes my presentation. And Amy, did you want to add more to that, or Gary?
Would you like to go first?
Go ahead. Why
Okay.
don't you start off?
Okay. In doing this, I want to tell you why we're proposing this and what headway the Design Review Subcommittee has already made on this project. First of all, we are not making any deviations from the CUP that's already been established. That is to say that Casa Romantica's amphitheater exists to provide entertainment. It has non-amplified small demonstrations, workshops, and community events, and that's what we intend to keep using our amphitheater for. Some of the most common uses really are for our community programs. For instance, the first Sunday of every month, we have a free admission day. Anyone can come. There's no barrier to access. We have people from all over Orange County and people who otherwise couldn't afford to come. We have community events that happen every single month. Most of them take place in the amphitheater between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., so they're no bother to the neighbors of all. We also have workshop demonstrations. For instance, a local and nationally award-winning artist, Rick Delanty, hosts several painting lectures and demonstrations there per year. And we have our summer academies taking place in classical music and dance in the amphitheater. And an issue that we've noticed over time is that the heat of the sun really becomes an impediment. And the more and more we learn about sun protection, this is a greater concern to all of the thousands and thousands of people we serve at Casa Romantica. So we would really like to have these shade sails in order to provide greater safety for everyone who comes to visit our cultural center to learn about the history of San Clemente and participate in arts and culture. And we'd also like to have the shade sails to provide comfort for them. And an area of headway that's already been made that has gone through the planning was that in 2019 we received approval for the fixed amphitheater seating. And this was an improvement over the existing concrete structures that we had. The Pure Bowl specific design plan was in effect at that time, and it's noted that that project met the findings for approval. And if you think about it, with the materials themselves, there were modern materials used. This says in the city report, the new seating is compatible with the historic and architectural character of the property, and the seats are made out of blow-molded polyethylene. Now that certainly wasn't available in 1927 for us to use, but it is certainly a very comfortable material that is mimicking the appearance of these slatted chairs from the 1920s. And I know both the city and Casa Romantica did an incredible amount of research, even going so far as to call Wrigley Field to make sure that we weren't weighing out any option that could possibly be weighed out. And so Casa Romantica has also done due diligence in this, as well as Gary Wiggle and his team, to attempt to work with any existing possibility that would be, I would say, really, really letter for letter on that design, that Pure Bowl design specific plan. And what we've determined is that Casa Romantica, which is the historic structure, is so incredibly beautiful, as you all know. It would be a real deterrent to have a very bulky pergola-like structure over it. you come in and instead of seeing the ocean, you see bars. I mean, that really seems like it takes away from it rather than a very uplifting light effect that has this existing contemporary structure that really complements the beauty of our historic gem. So this is the way we see it, as being able to continue to further serve guests in our community and to do so in a way that really helps Casa Romantica to stand out even more. And just so you know, this is the 95th birthday of our historic estate this year. So it's a special point in time, and we want to continue to honor its legacy in the next decades and decades moving forward.
So Amy touched on the design issues. The casa itself, where it sits on the site, adjacent is where the amphitheater sits, and that amphitheater is only 10 years old. It is not a historic structure. It is not anywhere near that, and that whole garden, that layout is not, besides amphitheaters being thousands and thousands of years old in their basic design, it really isn't very historic overall. The chairs, like she said, we went through a lot of trouble to make sure we had the right chairs in there and make that comfort level for the patrons. And we looked at options with the existing conditions we have, which is obviously a sloped floor, base that we have to work on. And anything that would be of a Spanish heritage style design would be, it would be very heavy, it would be bulky, you'd have, major sloping roofs that would overwhelm the casa. The simplicity and kind of the streamlined design of the casa, especially on that side of it, would be totally overwhelmed by putting in a conforming style structure. And we did go and we did research the national standards, and we did feel that this did comply with the national standards in support of structures just like this, to not deter and not detract from the historic nature of the building. And we don't think that a structure such as this, which is really more of an accessory structure, it's not another building, we're not building another space, we're not building another enclosed amphitheater, this is simply just providing the shade. We feel that the design was the most respectful to the building and did not impact the design. When you walk around that corner, you're not going to see, two things that gather your eye. This one is so kind of fanciful. You see right through it. You see the ocean. Then you get to celebrate the casa and the rest of the gardens. So that's our feeling. And as a San Clemente resident since 1979, I think it would be 100% wrong to build a great big bulky structure over there simply to comply with, a couple of sentences within the specific plan.
Okay. Anybody else? Is that the?
I just wanted to add with the design, we have taken efforts to think of a structure that is truly going to complement our architecture, and to that effect, we're not envisioning something that has shiny silver aluminum looking poles and bright red awning style things. We want to make sure that we are compliant, complementary, and we'd love to envision a structure that would, for instance, have poles that resemble the black wrought iron that takes place all throughout Casa Romantica and all of our railings, that has a compliant cream-colored shade sail, something that's really just non-obstructive. Again, is going to highlight the deep, deep blue of the ocean just beyond us, the fuchsia of the bougainvillea, and all of the greens surrounding that area, something that's going to be gorgeous. We can even put decorative fluting on the tops. We envision, for instance, when we make the stage ADA compliant, using as a reference the Getty Villa in Malibu, which has a totally ADA compliant forest stage with these lovely mosaic tiles throughout. And that helps to demarcate the stage, but really enables everyone to participate. We've had some wonderful daytime theater performances at Casa Romantica and the amphitheater that are primarily historic Greek and Shakespearean plays, and having that would just add to the experience that people have of making Casa Romantica living history.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of what we're trying to accomplish here. We're not an approval body. You guys know that, Gary. You've been here before. So you guys are aware we're here to provide input and really to try to help
Yes.
move this thing along. This will go to Planning Commission for approval, or is it the
Zoning administrator.
ZA?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, why don't we, you guys have any questions for staff or?
I'll hold them up for discussion.
Okay,
Can you guys speak to the amphitheater, why you want to just take it down? Is that, can you just kind of talk to that?
you mean the
The
platform?
The
stage.
platform, yeah.
Right now, the stage is raised about 18 inches,
Yeah,
and it's not ADA accessible for a performer. And when you look at this picture, the walls that go around the back of that are all retaining walls. The site drops off continually around the back of the stage. So there is no opportunity to get enough length to get a compliant ramp anywhere around this whole stage. And we became sort of landlocked. So the best solution ended up being able to just simply drop it flush with the front walkway, which made the accessibility automatic. And it also has a side benefit is it could be a little bit bigger stage for some, a group standing up there because we no longer have to fall off the front of it. And, but it made it completely seamless. One of the original concerns was the sight lines. If it was raised, was it better, was it not better? We talked to sound engineers about whether or not that would be, an issue of hearing a spoken voice. Was there anything great about standing up 18 more inches? And then we also just did some sightline studies on the computer to see what would happen, and it really had no effect on any of that. It just gave the accessibility, a 100% check mark.
So you're calling it a stage here, but it really is just a ground level.
Yes.
So how do you demarcate what is the platform area? Is it just kind of open?
We're probably going to do it with the either the color of the paving, tile demarcation, something like that, to just sort of insinuate the edge of the stage.
Okay.
But it is still going to pop off the back of the existing sidewalk. It's going to be, pretty much visually apparent that it's not just sidewalk.
Okay, is there any sort of covering over the platform itself? Or is it all just, because I know the sails cover the whole amphitheater.
Correct.
So there's nothing, although there is some sort of a backdrop structure.
Yeah, we're talking about putting in a couple of, we have to put a railing on the back because of the fall side. And we're talking about putting in a couple of steel posts detailed similar to provide the ability for someone to hang a backdrop on if they needed to.
Okay,
And then it also then stiffens and gives us the ability to put the required guardrail height railing, keeping the concrete walls that are there to a minimum.
okay. So you're showing there's new walls that are being put in
Yeah.
behind? Okay. And those are similar to what's there now? It's
Yes.
that sort of
Yeah.
canted?
Yep.
Or
And
battered?
board, yeah,
battered
they're board form concrete now.
Okay, which is nice. So it's going to be a metal frame. What is that, like a tube steel frame?
Probably is what we're
Something?
thinking, yeah, because we don't want a place that birds will nest and dirt will collect. But we want something that is very slight. Number one, we don't want big bulky things. And they do have a need sometimes to hang a backdrop. Some of these Shakespearean things and things like that, they would love to be able to string up a backdrop. And something in lightweight steel like that has the ability to absorb that weight when you put it on.
Okay. So, but typically it's just going to be like an open frame.
Totally open frame, 99% of the time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's a beautiful theater in New England called Jacob's Pillow. It houses all kinds of dance, and that's one of our inspirations, to have a really lush backdrop that's just all of our California woodland gardens there for people to enjoy.
Okay. And that frame is going to get painted?
It's going to end up matching the metal that we agree on the posts, so that all of that metal in that area, and we're thinking black because that's the base metal color of the casa, all the wrought iron.
Okay. What about lighting for the platform area? Like, is there any new specialty lighting or anything like that? I know you have some lighting proposed.
Yeah, we have some bounce lighting off of the shade structure to try to
Okay.
illuminate and provide exit lighting for that space in the evening. But right now, there is no intention of, intense stage lighting or things like that.
Okay. So it's just ambient light for the performers or whatever? Can you describe a little bit of the lighting, how are those going to be mounted to the poles and flood the underside?
That's the way we've done it before. We put in flat LEDs that are uplit, and the ones we've used rotate so that depending on where, as you know from your house, the way the interaction with each post is a little bit different. You're able to maneuver that and take advantage of the bounce of the light off of there, so it's not an intense downlight. And they won't interact with the neighbors that way either, because the shade structure will be, in between the light source
Diffusing.
and the sky.
Okay. And is there any other low-level lighting, like on the, just for safety or whatever?
My guess is we're gonna end up, it came up when we did the seating. We ended up having to put in a few exit lights along the sides and along the walls for some of these steps. My guess is at the perimeter of some of these areas, especially where grade's gonna fall off, we'll end up probably building in a couple of, low-level lights just for that purpose.
Okay. And are you doing anything with the landscaping or just preserving what's there? I mean, I know it's very nice as it is, but is there going to be any demo? You'll just replace whatever?
No, and if you look at the photo, right adjacent to these walls, there actually isn't much landscape. And so, and the little bit of growth that we have in the parts that we're popping out on don't seem to inhibit that at all.
Okay. So the shade fabric itself is not going to take away from the view of the ocean at all? I mean, it's over on the side, I get that, but you're pretty confident that that's not going to impact the views from the garden?
It really shouldn't, because of the slightness, the different angles, and the curvature of it as it's going downhill. You're going to get different vantage points. As you walk out from the casa, you'll be under the high side of it. As you walk in from the parking lot, you're going to be looking mostly under the high side, and then it'll disappear below the horizon, and you'll see it over. And then, of course, when you're underneath it, as you step down in the amphitheater, you're going to retain that same view because it's all, sort of dancing over your head.
Okay. And I noticed that you've got some of the sails are supported, well, they're all supported around the edge, which I get, because that helps with the sight lines. But then you've also got some of these that are connected to each other. How are those connected? The sails?
They claim that they have a kind of a threaded edge to the long side and basically a bracket holding those. And the tension of those pieces being pulled keeps that together. So it's, it's all for one.
So it's like a clamp or something?
It's a ring, the way he described it.
Oh, it's a ring, okay. So similar to the edge?
Yeah, similar
Where's it
to the
attached?
edge, except it's using its mate as the support point.
Interesting.
And they create the tension on that and adjust the tension on that at the poles when they tension each of the sails. That, sort of fixes
So they
that
act together
Yes.
when they're connected?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this fabric's heavy, it'll sag. So is the idea that you can pull it tight as needed over time?
Yeah, and the cables that are in it are designed not to sag once they're tensioned.
Okay,
And, and the idea of the sail structure is that it takes upon basically the shape that's guided by the surrounding cables. And it should hold that fabric. Over time, the fabric is not to age and just simply sag and give out, like say a canvas would or something else.
Yeah.
The way these are woven, they're very tight. And the fabric is designed to hold taut and tight once they tension.
okay. What kind
So
of
the
a,
whole edge is a cable, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's seam.
Yeah, right inside of it.
Seam wrapped over the cable.
yeah.
And then
gotcha.
they interrupt that cable just at that, it peaks out, that's what they put that clamp on.
Okay. So it allows you to have a bigger shade area but you will have some gaps, obviously.
There'll be a few gaps,
Yeah.
and that's sort of, there's no way around that, because trying to get a structure this big would end up being a tent version of a solid structure, as opposed to something that's just providing.
Well, you'd have to
95%
do it
of the shape.
overlapping, and then you'd have to have more structural support for it, and that
Yes.
would,
Yeah, and you're up to like 56 feet where those are joined in the middle. It looks like 34, 56.
I mean, you'd have different levels if you do terrace them, if you wanted to have no gap, right?
Right.
And that way, there'd be airflow, but that one might be a challenging engineering to get that. I think the gap is gonna let light in, that's good, let air in, that's good.
Well, these breathe, right? I mean, these are.
Yeah, they breathe, and then with most of these things, it's the uplift, and it's getting that air out, and sometimes in tent structures, they get trapped.
The heat,
The
yeah.
heat gets trapped, that's when they begin to want to snap and
So
make
the
noise
heat will
in the
vent,
wind.
you think?
The heat will vent through this, and the joints at the top are designed to be a pressure relief as well. So there's no need for these things to want to be flapping in the breeze because the air is going to run along them and just escape.
Okay, because that's the other thing, right? You get a good breeze and all of a sudden you're hearing this noise of them.
Yeah, the last thing you want to hear is flap, flap, flap,
Right,
flap.
yeah.
You're hearing somebody speak. That would be-
Yeah.
If we were going really traditional and had a basic canvas, that would definitely be an issue.
It'll be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, this material is to have a warranty. Is
I believe it, yeah, I think it was 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
It was
Oh,
either
that's
10 years
pretty
or
good.
15 years.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
This material has been around. It was developed in Australia in the 1980s. And I mean, they just continued improving it. So it's good.
Yeah.
So you guys
I'm
are,
very familiar with it.
you're leaning towards the pearl?
Yes.
The which one? So you guys already have an idea which color?
We're thinking a lighter color.
The pearl or the latte, we want to see the samples in person.
Yeah.
But I mean, 2B really is complementary to Casa Romantica as possible, and to do whatever we can to be understanding of the table specific design plan. Those creamy, very pale beige swatches are all in compliance as well.
We don't want to make it, the oxide red, make it look like a
No.
pseudo red tile roof. That'd be another, big time mistake. That'd be the wrong thing to do. And right now, when we went round and round, we did I think 3 or 4 rounds on the chairs to come up with 10. And that was really the right decision at the end of the time. We originally looked at the color that would complement the blue-green of the Casa. And that also happens to be the most resilient color of chair that they make for sun. But by the time we came around to it, and I want to say, I think it was one of your ideas that the color actually just let the chair sort of go away and blend
Yeah,
with the
disappear.
sidewalk and things like that. And it really is very successful when you're out there. And that's what we're sort of thinking about this structure the same way, just sort of quiet, non-compete on its own, and then that would just sort of be a harmonious, just sort of a soft tan, which is a color that is found throughout the Casa.
Okay. So those easy ups or whatever, those are going to be removed.
Yes.
Yeah, that was just to show a sense of scale, right?
Yeah, and there was one there the day the guy went and took a picture, so he included it in
Oh.
his model.
Okay.
One of the considerations that we had here is that one of the sails brings shade over the very top row of the amphitheater, and so it's necessary that overhangs onto what we call our west terrace, which is the terrace of the newer structure created in 2006 and 7. And because Casa Romantica doesn't allow cooking on site in our historic structures, the West Terrace is where we set up catering kitchens for our private events. So we needed to make sure that the structure was A, not going to rise above Casa Romantica, and B, be tall enough that a catering kitchen would still be able to safely fit underneath it. So the model there shows that is construction compliant height.
Okay. And the poles are slightly canted, I guess, away from the center for structural reasons, or is
That's what he
that?
said.
Uh-huh. Okay. But those are just round, what,
They're-
6-inch?
Yeah. He says it could be 4, but he doesn't think so. He thinks with the wind load and the size of this, it'll be 6.
Yeah, there's a lot of tension on
Yeah.
these things when you get,
Well, that's what he said. He says even when you lean the pole, he goes, by the time we're done, they're going to be less leaning because their pole actually brings them in.
that'll all be engineered and everything.
Yeah, and they do all the engineering in-house, this group.
So this is considered a permanent installation, even though these can be removed.
Yes.
Okay.
And like Amy said, one of the first biggest ask was, please give us chairs. Because they were bringing lawn chairs and if you've ever been to the amphitheater, those concrete layers widen. They're not like a normal 3-foot step consistently down. They start at 3 feet and they go to 5 feet in some areas. And so people were sitting against the concrete. Some people were in lawn chairs. It was,
But I think the
really
chairs
chaotic.
are great, and I'm sure that with the heat, especially, you're not getting much traction out of that amphitheater.
It gets pretty hot. We have a coffee concert series with High Tide Coffee out of North Beach the third Friday of every month, and this summer has been nearly unbearable a few times. And we had to move our school children inside this summer because we have used that in the past for lessons, but we couldn't. We tried to work with some tents from our rental company, and they just weren't providing enough shade.
Okay, I got a question for David. What's the breaking point from a minor cultural heritage permit to a cultural heritage permit? How does this qualify for one and not the other?
It's the size. Let me see. Double check. I'll get back to you on that part right now.
Any other thoughts? Or we move into
That's kind of the whole thing, and I'm not. Nobody's really said why this doesn't have to meet the Secretary of Interior standards, which I'm not so quick to discount that. It's an adaptive use, but I'm very concerned about entering the courtyard. We've lost the garden. We now have AstroTurf in there, which I don't remember getting approved, but we now have AstroTurf. So the whole feel of the garden's gone. You walk in a little bit, so the whole impression of our historic treasure is diminished. Immediate to your right, the whole garden pretty much opens up to the view of this. And so when you're in that garden, this is a big part of your experience of coming into the historic Casa Romanica. And how do we diminish that or reduce that impact?
So it's a minor cultural heritage permit if it's a new accessory structure / expansion or minor exterior alteration. And it's a CHP if it's an addition more than 2,000 square feet or a new building.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's an accessory structure.
I'm concerned that maybe we are really edging on having to meet Secretary of Interior standards and not just discounting that.
No, we're not discounting those.
And we have no documentation of why it doesn't have to. I mean, we have another applicant this evening that's gone to the other extreme and totally documented everything. And I think we need to do that. This is the most important building we've got in the city. And I understand the operational issues. Absolutely.
Yeah, our opinion of Art is that we are meeting the federal standards. What we're not meeting is the specific plan.
Well, I'm wondering how you're justifying that we are meeting the Secretary of Interior standards. In this report, there's no justification for meeting it. So it's hard to make that decision.
Did you want to talk to us? I mean,
If you were sitting in that amphitheater, you'd understand.
Oh, I understand the operational issue,
Yeah.
but they don't take that into account in the Secretary of Interior standards. I totally understand the operational issues, absolutely. But this is the most treasured building we've got in town, and I'm sure we'll hear from Larry a little bit on this. But the whole impression when you first enter this property now, we've got AstroTurf, not the planning we used to have, and a view of this thing. Right now it's low enough that you can look over the top of it and it's very little impact. Don't know how it's resolved, but I'm concerned it has to be justified.
So the Secretary of the State Interior, the Secretary's documentation talks about accessory structures to historic structures when the historic structure cannot be mimicked or copied in any way because of situations like this, where it would actually detract from the base structure. And they talk about awnings, they talk about shade structures, and they talk about other methods that can be contemporary, because in reading the document, the contemporary is not a detraction from the historic.
That's where I'm having a problem, right there.
Because they talk about if you try to mimic the historic, the mimic most times is not as effective as the existing historic.
I'm just looking at this. This is extremely contemporary looking with the shapes and whatnot. I would think something far less, I don't want to say exotic, contemporary. I'm not sure this is the final solution on the best way to use a tent structure on it or not. I mean, that may be the solution, but the shape of these to me is a distraction because all of a sudden we've got these diagonal lines and all shooting everywhere, and that's certainly not what the casa is.
And I think as you walk in and that little patio opens to the side and you look through the little walkway to the amphitheater that you're
It's
talking
not
about.
so little, it's pretty wide.
Yeah, it's pretty wide, but it is confined on both sides with building, and it is roofed in that area, so you do have a snapshot window that you're looking through when you get there. And when you look at the back of this, you're going to still see through because it is transparent at the ground level between cover and ground level. It's totally transparent. So the view you get through of the ocean and of the plants and the things beyond are going to still be available. As you turn and look very hard left where you see it kind of heading downhill a little bit, you will see some shade structure. But as you look and you look where the actual seating is in relation to that opening, the seating is kind of up. You walk in almost at the edge of it, and the amphitheater sort of goes inland from that point. So a lot of this structure is going to be a little bit over your shoulder as you're looking through. It'll be a little bit to this side as you're doing that, as opposed to, say, walking in and seeing the thing directly in front of you.
Well, as you come halfway down the courtyard, you turn and look that way. You're looking at this whole.
Yeah, you're going to see it. You're going to see it over here. You're
So
going to see it from that one
We
edge
need
over.
to consider that when we're reviewing this.
Have you guys looked at that, the angles of it? Since you're sloping down, is there a way to slope these down and angle them in a different way so that the view is maybe that Bart's describing maybe is that if these are angled down, maybe then you're not looking at them edge on. You're actually not. You're looking right over them. Did you guys consider that?
You're looking at the same level that you're standing on. That it's based there at the top row of seats.
Yeah.
And then the amphitheater descends below that. So where you walk through and you look, our structure is all overhead. You're looking completely through it. That first covering that you see at that edge is well
High
overhead.
up.
Yes. So you have that open feeling all the way around. As it begins to diminish and go downhill, you are going to see some of that structure just by nature of it going down. But the view in the ocean is out this way from where the amphitheater sits, from where that cut through is. It's luckily not towards the ocean from that cut through. It's actually back a little bit and almost even, because when you come across that bridge area, you're right at the back side of the top curved row of chairs. Because that little opening to down below happens to the right of that, and that's where you kind of open into that plaza that's on the other picture that goes out.
So these are 22 feet is the highest point. Is that right? Am I reading this right, or is it 26? It's hard to tell. Well, the stanchions are different heights, right?
Yeah, the P5 one looks like it's 26.
Yeah.
Most of them appear to be 3 or 4 of them at 19, one 19.7.
I just didn't know if the articulation of these and the angle, if they undulated in a way that followed the natural descent of the amphitheater, if that gets at preserving more of the view and contains it more to that area, that makes it less impactful.
Do you have a site plan that's,
Yeah, it's the first,
Shows it in-
second page, yeah. And Bart, you are right, it is a little more in the view than I thought. Or at least it is to the left of you, yeah.
Yeah.
It is to the left of you.
so, I think shade sails is the right solution for shade. I tend to agree with Bart that it's a pretty imposing effect, the way you've got it designed. So it becomes a sort of a feature. And you know me, I like shade cells. I have them in my own house. And I think that you're on the right track in terms of using the fabric as a shade element, but I think there needs to be a more low-key, I don't know if low-key is the word, approach, so that, and I understand the parameters of using these sails, because it has to be parabolic in order for it to perform properly. I understand that you have to cant the columns. You don't have to.
You don't have to, yeah.
But you can. That adds, even though I do like it, as I look at this, I say, hey, I like that thing. But we have to consider the context. And I think that it could be integrated into the experience better than it has been.
Yeah, and I think one of the big questions you've answered, though, is that you do feel that shade structures are proper. We feel that too, and we're very open to.
I don't know.
I don't. Yeah.
I'm not
as you.
opposed. I agree that just the shape of this would be very difficult to do a permanent hard structure. But here's how open it is to the courtyards here. You can see there's just a breezeway, and then it opens up to the amphitheaters over here.
Right.
So it's pretty boom boom. One of the big things they talk about in the historic survey of the property is the garden interior courtyard. That's one of the biggies. And I want to make sure we're not diminishing that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so, I mean, my input would be, I understand the need for it. You really need it to get any traction out of that amphitheater. I think the fabric is a good solution. I think it needs to be, and I'm not sure how you do it, but it needs to be better integrated into that experience, because it can be an organic shape and form. It is, right? Because you can sort of recall the landscape, the organic nature of the landscape. I mean, this property needs to have a landscape that is part of the experience. I think that the sails can also work with the landscape potentially. I'm not sure how that's accomplished. That's why you have a good architect.
Well, that's why we have engineers who can figure these things out too.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a combination.
It's a real art form to get these things. And I do think there is a lot of parameter that drives certain parts of the decision. And then I think on the flip side of that, there's also a lot of freedom too. So I think we can go back and have that conversation with them, and it can be reconfigured, because it is, as long as we have the triangular shapes and the pieces that they can tension and pull and they all support each other, it can probably be, there's probably 50 solutions in the pencil at that point. And I think we can come back with alternatives that show that.
Yeah, Bart, do you agree that that's? I think the fabric is the least sort of imposing. I'm not a big fan of these heavy.
The shapes and all are what's I'm struggling with, and I'm not an expert on the National Historic Registry, which this is on, and this property qualified for it. Are we diminishing in any way, shape, or form its ability to remain on the? Because I know there's Larry, there's a classification for qualifying for the National Historic Registry, and it can diminish as we do these things. And I think there needs to be documentation that proves that we aren't doing that. And we don't have any of those issues even addressed in the report.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be helpful too, just a reference.
It was fairly clear that this type of a solution in a situation like this is a good solution. So I'll pull those parts together.
Yeah, this is going to the ZA, so we're not gonna look at it again as a planning.
Probably not, and that's why I want to make sure
But,
T's
yeah,
are crossed and the
we'd
I's
like
are
to make
dotted.
sure that it's supported in the documentation as well.
We also don't mind the three good minds also, weighing in on it either. That's, I think it's a good, healthy conversation and helps us get a better product.
Yeah, I mean, there are these fabric shades that can be pulled if you have a frame. And, you're introducing the sort of a frame behind the platform, as it were. Maybe there's a way that there's some sort of a frame that works with the architecture where you can pull these shades back and forth, and then it can be seasonal. These things are.
The input we got on those is they snap.
They snap.
Because they are sort of a loose fabric between the two rods, and in the wind, they go, pum, pum. There's no way to keep them taut, in their low shade portion. And they were worried because we asked the question of this guy early. The way the wind comes up from the ocean there, they would be sitting and they would be, filling up, emptying up.
You're gonna get a
filling up.
flapping.
Yes.
But I don't know which ones you're looking at, but they do have them where there's a wire that runs all the way across the frame, and it's attached in multiple locations, and there is an air gap between those.
Between those two, but they said the fabric that lays in between the two wires is the one, they said in the wind, especially if it's coming up the canyon to this, those will tend to want to pop up and then pop back down as the wind blows, even though they're getting a pressure relief along the sides. Because we talked about that because it is nice on a great night. It's lovely to pull those back and have the beautiful sky.
Right.
We've used those in a lot of restaurants just for that reason. And you lose that with a permanent structure, but we also looked then at the same, what is the impact of whatever the fabric solution is, how does it impact the guest underneath it?
Right.
And this guy actually cautioned us on that. He also cautioned us on super large expanses of the fabric that'll want to do the same thing, even if it's pulled taut. If it's too big, it's going to want to.
That's what I was trying to get at before, the sag.
Yeah.
These will move
Yeah.
in the wind.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they need to.
right.
That's what keeps them in place. But the way that they've explained this to us is that as these move, these sort of move in unison, and they're taut enough in these particular shapes to stay stable and not wanting to be flapping and moving about as much as oscillating in the wind, which is a more quiet situation. But I do think there's other solutions to stringing between these points of support.
Yeah, no, I think you've got a challenge on your hands here because it has to consider those engineering parameters, but also this historic context. So to try to get those two to work together, that's the challenge, I think.
Well, collectively, staff and us, when we had our big conversation, one of the questions was, we do feel that the fabric is a good solution. It is not compete with the machine, with the cost of building, and we think that is probably the top priority of this, is to not do something that's going to ever detract, but still provide it. And I think getting that question, sort of your feeling on that question, is a really big step for us. And then now we can massage and work within that parameter.
Yeah, and I think this is a big area, so we're not interested in some big bulky trellis or
It'd just be the wrong thing to do.
gazebo or something like that. I mean, I think you can accomplish it, but it just needs. I think it needs to address the context a little better.
Okay.
That would be. What do you think?
It's hard. I mean, there's so many different. On the one hand, you could think of a hybrid, like a pergola that just is the framing of it only. Instead of having poles, you have a pergola type of frame that complements the building, and then in the inside you use this frame. Use these sails and maybe one or two stanchions to support it. I don't know how that would work, but that's a thought. That's a hybrid potential idea. The only other thought I had too was the black stanchions. Well, it might complement railings. It might also be such a contrast to the fabric that it's just going to scream at you when you walk in, and it doesn't just meld into the whole concrete area. You kind of just want it to disappear. You don't want it to necessarily contrast and jump out at you to match. So that's another consideration. Is somehow that's why a hybrid too is just sort of the fabric kind of just disappears inside of that, but that might be not feasible. But anything to make it, to me, disappear so you don't really notice it. You're noticing the view, you're noticing the building, you're noticing the surrounding, and I don't know if you can spruce up some of the surrounding elements or not. But that would be I think the whole idea is just it disappears, you don't see it. You just get the benefit of the shade and you don't really look at it as an engineering marvel, you just don't even see it.
And that is the goal. That is,
Yeah.
you want it to be the
Don't even
last
see
thing
it.
you notice.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's going to be a question too. Is if it is what you call a hybrid solution, then that means it is going to have some sort of frame
Yeah.
that connects to the architecture. I think the wrought iron match is actually a good
Better.
idea,
Yeah.
as long as it's not too bulky.
Yeah.
Because then you're making that connection. I agree that the fabric itself should be very neutral, and the lighter colored ones, you have to maintain them more.
Mhm.
I know that because I don't maintain mine very well. So I agree with that, and I like the idea of dropping the platform so that that's accessible. I think that's a good part of the proposal. So I think you're on your way with the fabric. I think it can be.
That's
We
excellent.
should open for public comment.
Oh.
Public comment.
Is anybody here to speak on it? Sorry, Larry.
Larry Culbertson, Historical Society, longtime member of the CASA, volunteer there, big supporter of them. I've been disappointed with that amphitheater for a long time, so it really needs to be improved. I mean, the seats were a big improvement. I couldn't believe it when I first saw it. You had to sit on the concrete. But then you went to seats, you're in the sun. And I always thought that stage was kind of weird, and so everything about that plan was good. I am a little bit concerned about the appearance of the sales, because you kicked around the table quite a bit. Bottom line, I think that it would be good to call him a consultant, as Bart pointed out twice. It really would be good to have documentation. You gentlemen are experts, but we have an outside consultant that the city uses just to pass a quick judgment to let us know for sure what we're proposing is not going to be detrimental to the long-term interests of the concept. Another thing I would like to see would be a rendering. These are wonderful renderings, but I want to know what does it look like when I'm out on Granada or when I'm in the parking lot. I look and I see, right now I see beautiful casa and I see foliage. Am I going to be seeing some big sails sticking up real high? I'd like to see that rendering. David has assured me that it meets all the Secretary of Interior standards, and I'm sure it does, but that consultant could really nail that down. That's basically all I have.
Good stuff, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here to speak on that one? Okay. Do you feel like that's good input that
Yes.
you've received?
Excellent.
Okay.
That's, staff appreciates the design feedback. However, we also have another issue related to the requirement that that Spanish colonial revival design be used on this property. So we're looking for some feedback on that specifically. If the design review subcommittee is okay, not this project specifically, any and all projects where the Pier Bowl specific plan says Spanish colonial revival architectural style is required, if deviating from that is if that's palpable in any context.
Yeah.
Here's the requirement on the screen, how it reads.
And
What is the mechanism? ZA isn't supposed to violate the specific plan. Our recommendations aren't supposed to.
yes,
Go
this
the other
gets
way,
to
so
that whole
what-
discussion about encourage, discourage, avoid. There's discretionary projects have some leeway to them. Staff looks at this as a major, as a major remodel. I mean, this is a very large visually impactful change.
That's why I was concerned about minor versus a regular cultural heritage permit.
Yeah.
It's right on the cusp.
Yes. Yeah. Is this, and even in the context of this project with the design review subcommittee, are you okay with them deviating from Spanish colonial revival as may be necessary?
Well, I think one of the things we're calling an accessory structure, and there is some precedent. I don't know if it's specific to the guidelines, but about like a metal framework of some sort, which I think could potentially, as an accessory structure, fit with the style. But it's going to be a challenge, for it to feel like it's part of it. Because you do see, I mean, it's not unusual to see these shade structures or accessory
I
structures.
mean, you could, it's pretty void, right, currently, with the Spanish colonial revival look. But if, as Mr. Cosgrove indicated, there was a framework around, say, the overall that becomes one of your stanchions that was Spanish colonial revival looking, that might qualify as, yeah, it is maybe not 100% compliant, but it's got some character. It's got some character that is Spanish colonial revival. That might
Yeah, you
solve
could
that.
make a piler, like plaster.
Something.
Doesn't
Yeah.
be wood, it can be a plaster, white plaster matching the building with decorative, with the edges on it, and then.
If those were around maybe the stage, might not have to be the back poles, something like that. That you hang a hat on. That there's some Spanish
I think
colonial
there's
revival
opportunity
character
at the
to
stage.
it.
I think that's a very good idea. You go to Globe Theater, you go to things like that, and there's somewhat generic rooms with the style at, what you're looking at, and that could be a really nice way to tie it in. I think there's also an opportunity to do something with the poles that can become more decorative, because Spanish colonial does use a lot of metal. Even there, they've got twisted pieces, they've got arrowheads, they've got 100 variations of ornateness that are used, and without being too trite in the way we do it, I think you could take it away from just a simple stick and give it a little bit of
And you
flavor.
can connect it to the landscape is a method to do that too. I think even with vines, grapevines and wisteria and whatnot, if you're providing a framework for that and for shade, that could be a good way to tie it in as well.
Mhm. And it could be sometimes two poles are better than one, and then you could get something where you might get a vine growing up, or you might get
There you go.
some ornateness or some detail in those things. And then you could sort of recall the casa back on the stage at a lower level where it's not competing with it anymore, but it does make that visual link when you look in.
That would be certainly a good
And that
argument.
would be, as you're looking, your comments of walking up and looking in, that would sort of be your destination.
It would
view.
help maybe tie that view together.
Yeah, and I think framing a stage like that is a very natural thing to do. I think it's a really elegant way to sort of compose that front and the importance of
Might
that
give you
stage.
some
Yeah,
help
it's-
light
it-
your
it-
lighting
it's-
a
it's-
little bit
Really
too.
framing that view.
Yeah, and it's a really subtle demarcation too at the same time. It's sort of talking about that.
I would really love, and I don't know if Adam's in agreement, I would love to see it again before it goes to ZA.
I think
Because
staff's suggestion would be that it comes back to design review just because
I
of the
think we-
importance of this property.
We would like that.
because I think it would be really beneficial to have our
I do too.
stamp on it.
Yeah. Your input's
proceed,
been
yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
Okay?
As long as you don't feel we're slowing you down.
Yeah, we don't slow you down. We're just trying to help get the right.
Well, the cool weather is coming, so they've got a little rest. They were busy today, setting up for, looks like weddings. Yep, have a couple of events this weekend, this
It's
coming weekend?
our 20th anniversary annual fundraiser gala on Saturday.
Saturday, okay.
Yeah, so it's very, very
I'll
busy.
get one.
Yeah.
I know there's a beer pride thing going on.
Yeah, that's tomorrow evening at Fisherman's. That's right.
Oh, but even at Casa, I think there's something in October.
Yes, Pure Pride Foundation has an event at Casa Romantica every second Wednesday or second Thursday of October as well. Also a great event. We're
Right, well,
busy
hopefully that's helpful.
every day. Yes, thank
It
you
is very
very much.
helpful, very good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we don't necessarily encourage it, but even if there's, if you don't want to go and produce a full package, we can review sketches and images and stuff like that. Try to help, move things along.
Unless your guy can do what Larry's suggesting, does computer.
Well, he does.
I think photoshopping something in would be helpful.
Yeah, we talked about, they did the actual renderings very early on without much input on what the back was. That's why they had it back to the, to the stage and things like that. And as we got involved and we began to kind of finesse everything, they were able to maneuver a few things. And now, though, I think it's SketchUp, so I think they can just take the thing and we can give them a photograph and they can just drop it on.
That'd be nice.
I mean, they should be able to do that.
I think Larry's input was good.
Let me check with Larry. Has anybody ever done a walking video, entering the courtyard and looking around, and then,
I've seen that.
do you know who's got that or where that is?
In my mind.
Or does the Casa have possession of that?
Well, there are
I mean,
a
for
couple
these
of
discussions, that'd be great.
Sure.
They just go make one.
Yeah, well, we have a couple of different ones. We have ones that our staff has filmed for specific purposes, and then there's also a local Google business person who lives here in San Clemente, and a few years ago in 2017, he did the Google Street View of all of Casa Romantica, so you can also walk through at street level that way.
Wow.
You'll see a pretty old gallery exhibition, though, I'm afraid.
Okay, very good.
There's something called 3D Matterport where they can scan the whole space and you can 3D virtually walk through the whole thing. That'd be nice.
I just put a house on the market and they came in and did a video and it's interactive. You can
Yeah, you
look
just
anywhere
walk
you
through
want.
virtually
It's pretty
and
amazing,
you can
isn't it?
see views, so it'd be kind of
Yeah.
cool to do that on the property.
Yeah, you have the little circles and you click on it.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
how the Google one walks. It just takes
Yeah.
you to the next area.
Point, yeah.
If we have a software that if we link it to the geographic point on Earth, you can hold up your iPad and your rendering, you can move it in real time, like you're looking out a window.
I can't afford the program.
It's like, oh my gosh. I can afford the program, I can't figure out how to use it.
There you
That's
go.
the thing. I'm way too old for that stuff.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for yours.
Good seeing you
You
again,
too,
Jerry.
Steve. Thanks, Bart. Appreciate your input.
Nice to meet you as well.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you very
You
much.
too, thanks.
Oh, and
The legend. Yeah.
Hey there. Hi. There, yeah. Hopefully
Nice to
this
see you
is,
again.
yeah, nice to see you. Hopefully this is
if you can remember,
shorter item.
It
Should
is.
be.
it would
Whatever
have
you
been
guys-
nice to have the minutes
It's the last item.
from approving the stadium seating and all in the packet.
No, he had a
Just to give these
project
guys
at the
a
last.
what was discussed in trying to meet the requirements.
Yeah.
So it's actually,
The minutes from the RC for the.
it's actually amazing.
That was, there were
No,
multiple.
the seats were.
The
We
seat-
talked about getting a period correct look, but not necessarily materials. And there was kind of a discussion like this that went on.
Okay, well, we'll move along to the next. So you guys have been here before, you know we're not an approval body.
Yeah.
Don't need to read that. Okay.
I'm Christian, by the way. Nice to meet you guys. What's your name?
Bart Crandall.
Bart. Nice to meet you.
I'm Steve Camp.
Steve. Okay.
Cameron.
What's your first name?
Cameron.
Cameron. Nice to meet you. Christian. Nice to meet you guys.
We have these nifty little name tags right there.
Oh, nice.
We don't always sit in front of the right one.
There will be no test. You can just cheat. Look right there.
Nice to meet you guys. Thanks for
Yeah, likewise.
meeting with us.
Well, we're happy you're here. Thanks for your time and
Yeah.
your investment.
Okay, so this is the cultural heritage permit for the, is it WAC?
Yeah. Walk.
All right, and Chris, do you have a presentation you want to make?
I do. It's just simple. I'll just give you an overview. So this is a project involving a duplex historic structure. There's a residence, one story, that and then a second building with a garage on the first level and duplex unit above it. And there's a stairway leading from the street up to that second unit above the garage. The historic duplex was relocated to the site in 1959, and it's in the residential medium density zone, coastal canyon lot. So there was staff waiver issued for some rehabilitation work on the property, and then in the process of doing that, it was determined by the contractor that there was some wood rot, and the work progressed to a point where the structure was in bad condition. And so there was shoring put up, and ever since then there's been a stop work notice. The effort of this project is to rehabilitate the structure, repair it, actually to restore a number of features that were lost over time. Like if you look at the windows on the second story of the duplex unit, there was some detailing that was filled in or altered at one point. And then there's site work, so the landscaping was removed with putting in some retaining walls, new landscaping, and an addition with an altered stairway that would have a laundry room below that, and that would connect the two buildings together. The buildings are non-conforming to some setback standards, so that's what requires the culture heritage permit. The addition is below a culture heritage permit. It's a zoning administrator approval, but to get that exception from the non-conforming ordinance, it requires the culture heritage permit and has to go to the planning commission. And the project itself meets all the zoning standards. It also meets all the Secretary of Interior standards. We had a historic report done on this project, of which we had our contractor do a peer review, and staff did another review of that report, and is in full support that it's well put together and explains it all. So that concludes my presentation.
Okay, so the connection between the two structures, that's kind of the key, right? I mean, that's an element that's being added that you can see from the exterior.
You can't see the laundry room. It's going to be below the stairs, but the stairs are being altered. Like the stairs are connecting the buildings together. Right now there's separation between the buildings. They would be altered with going up to have, let's see.
It's on one property.
It's on one property, yeah. It's just a corner lot, so
PM.
there's street frontage on two sides. But yeah, if you, why don't we do this? So this is the current view of the building, like that, with obviously, or the pre-existing view before the work was done. But you can see some space between the buildings. So
There
there's
was a little
stair.
space between before.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, little gap right there.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
there's
the
a,
Mills Act?
You're gonna close that now. With this
no,
new
but we
staircase,
plan to
right?
put it on the
Correct.
mills after.
yeah. So
We
this,
want to finish the project and then do that later.
And that's the connecting of the two buildings. They're really not connected, it's just filling the gap.
Filling the gap.
yeah,
That's really just, that stairwell's gonna be redone, so it's an entrance to the top unit. That's basically what it is.
well, with the addition in our code, it's considered attaching the buildings. It's
Okay.
only 10 square feet, but to follow the code correctly, they need an exception from the non-conforming ordinance.
To
You're
fill
not
that
gonna,
space, and that's what the exception's about?
yeah,
Okay.
but we support it, staff, because it's the ideal place to put the laundry room, because you can't see it from the street, and
Is there a picture in here? of
Doesn't
what
change
that-
the character at all.
And also, they're putting in a wrought iron railing to maintain the openness between. That was a change that they made at staff's
Instead of the stucco
recommendation.
wall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to preserve the spatial relationship between the buildings. It's one of the Secretary of Interior standards by having the open railing. But they they want to also rework the area to have steps that go up to a space here with a retaining wall. And staff supports all those changes, looking at the Secretary of Interior standards.
It's like an exterior patio that's going to be added out where it's just grass right now. So just to like make that side of the house more appealing, it's just kind of a basic big flat white stucco wall right now. We're trying to create different living areas outside. And with the staircase was completely rotten out. It was actually structurally unsafe. So was the whole first level. It's called subterranean termites, and they're behind the walls, and it's a serious deal. So when they took the walls out, all of the framing was all shot. That's why the contractor really took it upon himself, and with instruction. I don't know if I'm going too far or saying too much, but I'm just kind of.
I'd rather not get
Yeah.
into that because we have disagreement on what happened.
Okay,
It
yeah.
doesn't change anything, but
For sure.
As far as we're concerned.
yeah, I mean,
Okay,
it
cool.
just-
Yeah.
I do have a question
Yeah.
for you, Chris. They currently don't have a Mills Act on this.
correct.
Is there any way they can get credit for the work they're doing for rehabilitation and bringing this back
Yes.
to reduce the impact of that first, I want to say 10 years, 7 years, whatever it
10
is,
years. Yeah.
Yes.
10 years, on the list of items that have to be corrected?
Yes, we want to reward the work that they're doing.
That's exactly what I'm looking
We're
at. I
not
want to
going
make sure they
penalize
don't
them.
do all this
Yeah.
and don't get rewarded.
Yeah,
With a remodel of this size, it'd be interesting if there are going to be many things to fix when it's done.
Yeah.
And so thereby the Mills Act would provide basically a reduction in property taxes
Mm-hmm.
in exchange for maintaining the property as historic.
Okay, so that it can be taken into consideration,
Absolutely.
the work they're doing now. That's,
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I do want to, while we don't need to get into the history so much of the stop work, I do want to emphasize that Christian is really trying to improve this structure. He's investing a good amount of money into this.
oh yeah.
And is trying to hire the right people. And he's been very patient trying to get through everything. So
Now being on a
overall,
coastal
he's
canyon,
been
does
very
this go
nice to
to,
work with.
does this have to go to coastal because it's on a coastal canyon?
It
Yeah,
does, and
it's
they were
there now.
working on it.
Oh, it's
yeah.
there now, okay.
So we've timed everything.
That's- Why you're so complete.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, it's like a model.
And that was really,
It's in the middle.
Yeah.
sounded to me from their response, they're gonna approve it, they wanted to know what the outcome of this.
Yeah, you're not really
was.
changing the footprint, so it shouldn't really bother them a whole
The
lot.
only change is the staircase widening being rebuilt. So the stairs are a little wider and the railing's a little higher to meet current codes. I don't think you would have to do that. You don't have to meet current codes, but if the staircase is off and being rebuilt and has been
Yeah,
rebuilt,
there's some liability.
might as well be built to code and safe, and no one's having too many margaritas falling off the side.
And that addition is opposite to the canyon edge, which is,
Yeah,
I think that's coastal, they didn't really have a problem with that.
and the railing before was like up to your knee. You know, it was pretty dang low. Like,
Yeah.
And the stairs are narrow, so it doesn't meet the width.
I think the
Can't
open
even get
railing's
furniture
gonna
in
look
that.
great.
yeah.
It's gonna look, I think it's gonna improve it.
I think it'll look better with the open railing too. And then with the risers, with tile on the stairs going up with the open
Yeah.
railing, you'll see
gonna be-
the pretty stairs when you drive by. It's on a corner lot too, so it's like a really high visibility location. A lot of people drive by there, and so it's going to be really nice. Like, we're really excited to finish it. We're just kind of waiting to get approval and then get Coastal to approve it and go from there and just
If
start.
you don't do this stuff, it's gonna fall apart. I mean, so you've got
Yeah, so we have to.
a labor of love here.
Do we have anybody from the public that's here to comment on this one? Larry?
You didn't think I was gonna comment. So, I want to say that Christian reached out to the Historical Society several months back, invited us over to see what he was doing, and we were very impressed. He subsequently showed me other properties he's worked on, he's doing really quality work, so we're really looking forward to the end result. A couple other comments. Your attachment 3, the historical resources analysis report, that's probably one of the best ones that I've ever seen.
I was impressed.
I wish we could
Yeah.
get one like that, all 203 of the.
That's what I was hoping the CASA would do.
maybe that's 75 to 80 pages. It's really wonderful.
Is that?
I don't think they
That's,
usually.
is that appendix B?
Oh.
Attachment 3. It's 80 pages long.
Okay.
I don't think
Very
we
good job.
require anything.
For a little duplex, like a kind of a.
Yeah.
It's had an
Yeah.
interesting life.
she went
There was
kind of
there-
nuts.
There's all that like complications at the beginning that prompted some questions about the process.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a great report, and like I said, Christian's been
I don't think you even require that extensive report for HPPA Mills applicant. And I would like to make one quick commentary. That property is a perfect example of why the city needs to have some minimum maintenance standards for all of our designated historic structures. I don't know if you had the opportunity to go up in there, but that thing was termite riddled up above the garage, the entire structure. Absolutely horrible. And to allow somebody to be on the historic resources list and let a property deteriorate like that, it's a crime against historic preservation. And it's just not
Unfortunately,
fair.
pretty common.
So we're lucky that Christian got it in the nick of time before it blew away. So.
Larry's been instrumental on getting one of the first items on the Mills Act reports to be a termite inspection and correction
Yeah.
in the first couple, 3 years on all of those.
I think that's a big deal.
Planning to enforce that on homes.
Sir, yeah, something you want to add?
Well, I just want to say that he did another house in the neighborhood, and I happen to live in that neighborhood, and I'm just say Christian, he improves the area. When he's done, the area is enhanced because that's where I'm coming from, both from the historical society, keeping San Clemente looking like San Clemente, and two, just taking a property and improving it, and basically when you improve the property, you improve the neighborhood. And it just so happens that's where I live, so.
Appreciate that. We became friends.
And for the record, that's Jim Hamilton,
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim Hamilton,
or
Yeah.
recorded here.
thank
Yeah,
you.
we became friends because I was restoring a smaller one nearby there that's like 600 square feet. It's a tiny, tiny house. Probably not worth doing what I did to it, but it was worth it to me because it had potential as my first house, and I learned a lot by restoring that house. It was a can of worms for sure, but at the end of it, it was a really cool little place. So I've moved on from there now, and I'm working on this one. And this one was one I always saw. I would leave that house. You could see each one from each other. I'd leave my house and see this one on the corner and go like, I want to do that one someday. And so it so happened.
You could have your own show on HG.
selling San Clemente. No, just kidding. No, but I am into it. I am into preservation. We actually own another historic property that we're working on right now, kind of just paint and stuff, that we've moved to since. And that's over on Esplanade. And like for example, the old cabinets in the kitchen, people walk in and be like, oh, this kitchen will be awesome remodeled, and meaning tearing it all out. And when we got it, we took the cabinets off, sanded them down, lacquered them, and they look all brand new again, but they're old, reused the hardware. Everything is all original, but just renewed. My word is renewed, not really remodeling, but renewing. What's
So you say we, that's,
my wife and I.
oh, she's
Yeah.
complicit.
She is, yeah, she digs it.
You would
into
have
it.
to have that
Yeah.
if you move into these
Yeah.
places, I guess.
She's into it like I am. She's even more into the preservation of things. I'm like, well, we could put new knobs, and she's like, no. She's out spray painting them in the courtyard. I'm like, you're definitely a good wife. She's into it, yeah, yeah. So we're into it. We really are, and we did a really nice job on this is a duplex, so the front house part is pretty much done. They allowed us to finish that part inside and everything, and it came out really, really nice. Ray came inside, and we did 3/4 inch hardwood floors that are all 1.5 inch. They're real specialty floors, and stained them real dark, and they're real. It's not like vinyl flooring or anything that's not proper. It's all proper stuff in there.
No.
Vaulted the ceilings, did fire
You don't really
sprinklers.
have to do that on the interior, right?
You can do
Sure.
anything you want in there,
Yeah.
really, but it's all vaulted ceilings and fire sprinklers all over it, so it's all up to code, and we had to do everything proper.
So this is not part of the design review, but so you guys flip these properties.
We're going to keep it, yeah,
Oh, this is what you
to
do.
keep it, yeah.
Because you have to find a certain buyer that really appreciates
Yeah.
what you're doing.
I think a lot of people really love the historic properties and they're very valuable. But
Yeah.
I think that for us, we'd rather keep them long term as an option to move into or for family or just to hold long term and make sure that it stays right. And that's kind of my goal, is to make it
That's
right
cool.
and keep it right.
Larry, did you have anything else? That's it? Okay.
I have one other thing I want to point out. So, for years, an unattractive part of this property has been, ever since they relocated the structures, they put it on this home, they put it on a foundation, it's raised, and you've been able to see the stucco line of the non-original foundation. And then what Christian wants to do is put in a planter wall, or like a courtyard wall that will hide that. And I think that
Attached to
will
the
help.
house or something?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
attached,
Yeah.
but this is non-original, so it won't.
So it's like a
Have
plant
any-
or wainscot.
It's on the plans in there, I think. You could see
So right
kind
here,
of.
you can see there's a wall that would come here. Maybe a courtyard.
And what's the wall going to be? The same?
Yeah,
Is there
stucco,
enough-
white stucco, real simple.
So it's going to pop out a certain amount from the.
There's like a retaining wall that's higher than the patio, so it would be like higher than the actual floor of the patio, you know, little wall.
So there would be a planter wall that would encroach into the public right of way that requires an encroachment permit. And then there's this wall that would be built here to raise the grade below the base of that non-original foundation.
Oh, so that other wall, the planter wall, extends outside the right-of-way one?
It does, yeah,
Okay.
for planning.
But we built a whole sidewalk on the whole thing. It's like a 150-foot sidewalk that was expensive, but the neighborhood likes it.
Yeah.
They do. I've had a lot of people comment on it, like, "Hey, dude, thanks for the sidewalk. This is killer." I'm like, cool.
And is engineering
is
putting
nice.
a deed restriction on it to return that to city property if they ever decide to widen the street?
There would be a standard encroachment permit agreement that would set conditions for allowing the structure there. So in the event of some public need to do public improvements, then.
Okay,
it would
that's
be
the standard one.
obligation.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion?
Impressive reports. They're doing a great job, and hopefully you won't have any hassles with the coastal commission.
It's pretty smooth
Good
so far.
input.
Yeah.
First round response was positive.
Mr. Cosgrove, did you have any?
No, I think it's great that you're going around and replacing all the wood that's rotted and, because that's
Thank you.
what happens to these buildings. And,
Yeah.
So
It's like surgery to fix them, you know, you gotta do it. It's like not an easy one to fix, and then to put it back together the right way
I
too.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's what happens and then,
That part hasn't been done yet, that's upstairs. So basically that structure was a tear down, but we wanted to preserve what we could of it. The upstairs was in better shape than the downstairs. So we're trying to keep what we can of it and then do what we needed to do to keep it there like it was
Yeah.
originally.
because actually if people don't do this, they become eyesores.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we don't want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Well,
Yeah.
the community turns sour on it after a while because they're like, look at all this dilapidated
Yeah.
buildings, and then just become rodent magnets and everything else.
Yeah. And they have so much potential and people are just
Yes.
going like, "Ah, that could
So
just
we should
be
be,
so killer. So
you know,
that's
you let us know what we need to do to support you so you get this done.
Thank you.
And get the credits. One question I had, I think I read in here that you're replacing some of the tile, roof tile, but
None
not
of-
all of it?
Yeah, that's right. On the main house right now, none of the roof tile, well, just around the chimney, there's like a small portion that's been replaced to fix the chimney.
Okay.
But on the structure, on this structure, the duplex above the garage, all the roof tile's off.
Okay.
And it wasn't the original roof tile. It wasn't the old school roof tile. It was newer tile. So that has already been taken off. So
Okay.
there's no roof on it right now. There's just plastic on it right now.
So it's all essentially new.
It'll be new tile on this one. on that structure, on the small one, not on the
Okay.
main house. The main house makes up like 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of the whole project.
So my question is, how are you gonna match the tile on
We're gonna
on
match
the
it.
existing house?
We'll find the matching
You'll
stuff.
find a way.
Yeah. There's a place over in Lake Elsinore that has the matching tile. The
Oh,
stuff that
okay.
they made on the
Because
old
that's
school.
oftentimes not that easy.
Yeah.
Especially, and that's such an important part of it.
It is, yeah. I have a friend too who passed away, unfortunately, but he was an older man and he had a bunch of tile stockpiled up from an old Ole Hansen on his yard. He has like an auto shop. So, and I saw him right before he passed and he said, go grab that tile and put it on your building. So I'm going to see if it matches close enough, and that might be an option too. Even if that's like the front part, and then we do whatever we can find that matches as close to on the back part. But it'll be like 100% mud and look the same as the main structure, or 75% mud,
Okay.
where it has concrete in it and stuff.
Yeah, I
and it
noticed,
looks-
I think I noticed it's described here. It's lifted at the edge where you've got the triple course.
Yeah, on this structure, I don't know if you can do like 100% mud, because then it becomes too heavy and it's such an old thing
Yeah,
that you don't want
that's
to put
the thing,
too
the
much
weight.
weight on the top. So you want to be careful with the weight.
Yeah.
Usually the first 2 rows you do 100%, and then on the ridges and the rakes you do thicker mortar, and then in the fields, on a structure like this, you don't have to do it everywhere, but like where you do it thicker, just so like the tiles don't look like they're consistent.
Looks like it's been repaired.
Yeah, you don't want it to look perfect, but
Yeah, we want it to look like with character,
Like
like
it's
old
old.
school. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We really want it to look
New
proper,
old.
and be proper. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, renewed.
But since I started working here, they have way better options for tile.
Mhm.
It's just now they have places that simulate hand-formed tile. They didn't have that when I started here. But
They do.
there's
Yeah.
more of
yeah.
a market for it.
So we'll use whatever looks the oldest that matches the current that looks so they look similar.
And a blend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and spread them around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I looked at the landscape plan that you have, and I think it's great. I mean, you have an opportunity because the landscape's all going to be new.
Yeah.
The one thing I noticed,
And they're restoring the coastal canyon vegetation,
okay,
so that's
there's a landscape.
even when you look at the condition of the lot before the new work, just a huge upgrade to the.
Oh, big time.
the
Yeah, it
canyon.
looked horrible before.
Yeah, it was like pretty much all weeds growing in the
It
back.
totally looked like abandoned.
Yeah, the guy who lived there prior is a super nice gentleman, but he had a tenant upstairs that passed away, and they didn't find him up there for a while. And so he never wanted to go up there again,
Yeah.
and never wanted to go in the backyard, and he was all spooked by it.
So everything's new,
Fair
trees and everything?
Everything, yeah. It's all
Okay.
new plants.
That's
Okay.
gonna be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's gonna
And then
be really nice.
one thing I did notice is you've got this row of podocarpus
Mm-hmm.
here on the side.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, it's a corner property here,
It's against
so
the
that's a
neighbors.
buffer
Yeah.
To the neighbor, which
Mhm.
podocarpus is a pretty solid buffer. But I like the landscape plan. I like some of the layers that you have. I like the fact that, it's mostly native. I mean, I think it's gonna fit in their grade. I'm sure you guys looked at that pretty closely.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of thing we like to see.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
So a lot of people don't pay attention to the landscape,
Should
I
have
can
you
tell.
We put
Put
a
on a
lot of
lecture toward all homes here.
Yeah, we put a lot of thought into that, and with the landscape architect, the guy who did the design on this, he sent me all the plants and all the photos of them, and he gave me like a lot of options, and then we cherry picked the ones that we liked, and then kind of went with that. And you were instrumental in that, and like saying like, hey, let's think about this differently, and we did. I think it's going to be super nice. It's going to be nicer than I ever thought it would be, but
Yeah, we're excited. This kind of stuff we like to see. around here.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have any other input.
We're lucky to have them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I say.
Nice job.
thank you. It's going to be
Good
fun.
luck.
Thank you.
What's needed from us, Christopher?
That's it.
Yeah, like-
So, you know, if you're in agreement and that's pretty clear, I don't
Well, let's
got a
come.
lot of minutes,
let's
right?
come- Then the next up was the zoning and then planning?
I'll go to the planning commission. I just
Okay.
need to set a hearing date. I'll work with both of you on that.
Yeah, because we don't approve, as you guys know, but we make a recommendation to the
Leave these
planning
here so you
commission.
can recycle them.
Cool. I'm stoked you guys like it.
I'm sure, yeah, we do, we think,
Like it.
yeah, more,
Really nice.
you should do your own show.
Yeah.
Got 3 out of 7
Sponsor.
concurrence already.
What's that?
Got 3 out of 7
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're all on
already.
Photos.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right,
Very fine
thank you for
job.
coming in.
Appreciate it. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
Excited for you guys to see it when it's done. If you guys ever want to see it too, if you're just in the
You ever get to the hardware store up there at the Circle of Orange?
Have the phone numbers.
Yeah, we went there actually
I-
recently.
Did a house on
Them at all?
I can
North
get you
Orange.
one of them.
Oh,
right up
really?
against the campus,
Oh, okay.
a bungalow house.
Yeah,
We
and they'll
spent
get
a
you-
lot of money down there at that
Yeah.
hardware store.
Yeah, they have all sorts of little trinkets in
We
there.
kept all the original
No, that's no problem.
light switch types.
Yeah,
push
the
buttons.
push buttons are killer.
Yeah.
The only
That's fun.
person that probably knows that.
No, I know.
Well, with vintage looking appliances.
Yeah.
All right,
Great.
take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
Our
Thank
house,
you.
we just put a smeg in there,
Thank you.
like
Yeah, yeah.
tall smeg, and it's
Mhm.
cream colored, and we have the old, I forget what ours is. Occidental, I think, is the
Okay.
stove.
Not mine coming up here.
Yeah,
Cool.
sure.
Okay.
All right, you guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good day, you guys. Thanks.
Heather,
Sorry you had to wait.
it was riveting.
Yeah. We hear that a lot. Yes.
Okay, so this is a discretionary sign permit, right? Right, okay.
And I did introduce myself. I'm Mike Riley, Director of Science and Graphics, just up the hill.
Okay.
You presented before?
I have, yes.
And you already,
I'm Laura Corey. I'm the assistant planner.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So this is a monument sign, a freestanding monument sign for Reyes Paradise. It's a discretionary sign permit, DSP 22151. This project is in association with a residential care facility serving dementia and Alzheimer's residents in the Community Commercial 3 zone and also in the Coastal Zone overlay. The existing building is a Spanish colonial revival architecture, and the primary facade and access are oriented towards Avenida del Presidente. So that facility is on 101 Avenida Calafia. Right.
Yeah, it's on the corner there.
Yes. So right across the project site's on the southwest corner on El Presidente and Avenida Calafia, and to the northwest is a residential development, and then to the east the Interstate 5 freeway, and then south is the hotel San Clemente Inn and the San Clemente State Park to the south. So the entrance or the off-ramp is designated on Avenida Calafia, and the I-5 as a gateway entrance in the general plan. So the project is proposed as a 62.7 square foot monument sign. It's 11 feet in length and 5.7 feet in height. It is, it utilizes the Spanish colonial revival style. It has our sample board here for you that Mike and his wife Laura graciously brought in. Shows the glazed blue tiles, the decorative tiles that are going to be used on the monument sign. Also, the logo. It's a polished bronze, and the lettering is the tile in black. And these will be halo lit. Channel letters. All right. So currently, the freestanding monument sign is proposed at the corner of Avenida del Presidente and Avenida Calafia. Sorry. So here's a site photo. Shows a little bit of the gateway. You see a little bit of the ocean view. Taken from,
Sign's going right in.
On the corner there?
Yep.
yeah, actually right there where the green
Green fences.
fence
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the light pole.
So it's not this big, but it's in this area here, facing where the camera's looking.
But it's turned at an
It's
angle.
kind of at a 45 to the corner.
It's at a 45 to the corner, and the lettering then would be directly facing the off-ramp of the freeway.
That kind of just makes it square with a lot. I think that, you know, you're just centering it on the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion over the years about freeway facing, freeway oriented, freeway visible signs.
Yeah.
And that,
And I'm sure that's one of the things we're going to talk about
it is.
today.
So this is an image of the site from the freeway. This was taken off of Google Maps because it's a safe place to take pictures from a freeway. And so the scale, I'll say, of the picture, the depth perception is maybe a little bit different than what's actually there, but there is a clear view between the freeway and this building and the sign specifically. So it is at least visible from the freeway. And I'll let Laura continue.
I think I just have the pictures here for us to look at. Oops, sorry. This is as you're exiting the off ramp. And then this is a close up. So then another picture that I took, this was from our GIS, just kind of showing, I believe this distance is about 78 feet to the residential, and then it's 90 to the off ramp, and then about 300 to the freeway. As the crow flies. So here's an elevation of the proposed freestanding monument sign, and the decorative tiles, the cap on top. Oh, and then also just to kind of, it is very small, and Laura was gracious to add that on there, was the sizing. So the height of the letters here are 6 feet, 0.63 inches, and these are almost 2.96.
3 inch at the lowest.
At the
level.
bottom, mhm.
Yeah, pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the side elevation, and then on the rear. The rear has the classic stucco, white stucco, with the decorative tile in the center. And then here's a site plan showing the location. Number one is the monument sign, and then there's a low berm, I don't think this one has it, but the berm wall on,
There's a retaining wall behind it.
yeah, small retaining wall.
It's 18 inches on one side, it's basically ground from there.
So this wall here is behind, so this is the front side over here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The tree is not in the sign.
So is that wall there to get the sign up higher? What's the reason for this retaining wall?
That's probably the case. That was something this was actually the landscape architect that made that change. That was added later on in the in the design, but I'm guessing you're probably right on that.
Okay.
It also, you see the top of the retaining wall is about the same height as the sidewalk. So there was probably a bit of a depression in there.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. Sorry, you can see some of the measurements there from the right of way at the top, 25 feet, and then 8 feet to the side. And there's some measurements in red in relation to the property line, to the monument. And so we're asking for you to weigh in on, to ensure that the freeway visible sign doesn't become a freeway-oriented sign per the sign regulations. And so our code defines freeway visible signs, any sign that's visible from the freeway, but whose primary purpose is not freeway-oriented. Where freeway-oriented is prohibited, new signs are prohibited, but typically they're large signs oriented either parallel or perpendicular to the freeway and intend to advertise directly to freeway motorists. They can be visible from local streets. The size and orientation can vary in legibility with the intent to advertise to freeway motorists. This was a table that we had found that from the manual on uniform traffic control devices that kind of gives information about operating speeds, words you see per that speed, reading time, and height of the letters, and the distance on the approach.
This is a unique sign application request. We haven't really gotten a lot like this where the question of whether it's passing that threshold between freeway visible and freeway oriented has occurred. The code leaves a lot of discretion up to the planning commission to make that determination. So we kind of wanted to make that a bit of a focus because there is a design element to it that I think makes it freeway oriented versus freeway visible. And there are things like the height of the letters, the distance from the freeway. There is also a distinction here, that is, what is the freeway? The off-ramp, Caltrain's right-of-way, or the actual traffic lanes of the freeway. Our code, again, doesn't necessarily define it, but we don't have to have a definition of freeway somewhere in the municipal code in order to rely on the zoning ordinance discussion about what's freeway visible or not. So we kind of wanted to throw all this stuff out and at least have a discussion about it so we kind of know what we might be looking at when the applicants are going to the planning commission.
Mm-hmm.
If I can add one other comment there, Laura presented information showing readability and visibility versus speed and distance, which is an important consideration. The other one is related to the height of the letters. A very rough rule of thumb that we use is that there's 10 feet of visibility for every inch of letter height. And the larger letters are 6.6, let's call it 7 inches. So 70 feet of visibility. So I think relevant to the question about, whether there's an attempt to advertise to freeway traffic, that's not the case. And then this further is a fine font, which would decrease that. And it's halo illumination, not face illumination, which would decrease that as well.
You're finished, Laura?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? I guess we have no public here, so we don't have to worry about public comment at this point. All this freeway facing sign and all came during the general plan update. And when the outlets were coming in,
and we haven't even mentioned that this is a gateway location. We never interpreted it, as far as I know, that the off-ramp was the freeway.
Agreed, yeah.
We were interpreting that people going down the freeway, if you could see a sign and you could get off quickly and get to that location,
AKA Dennis.
that's a freeway-oriented sign. The whole intention was to bring people off the freeway to your business.
Yep.
Some people got around that, like McDonald's and all, they had a pre-existing pole sign, they got around it. Chick-fil-A is one that at the outlets, you come down the off-ramp, they got a signage, I think it's on the building, I don't remember specifically, but
I think
and
you're
it was
right.
interpreted that that wasn't a freeway oriented sign, although freeway visible maybe, but you'd already passed the off-ramp
Yeah.
for that. That's how we've been using it up to this point.
I think that's
this,
helpful.
This one looks, the fact it's low,
Yeah.
a lot came up on the mixed-use projects along El Camino. They didn't want to get big high signs advertising to the freeway. Those would be freeway oriented and freeway visible. They can be both. But this one doesn't seem to fall into that category. It's low. It's can be assumed Spanish colonial revival looking and materials. So it meets that criteria. It's at a 45 to the freeway, so it's more oriented to southbound traffic on the surface street to come in. So I can make the interpretation it's not freeway oriented. It may be freeway visible, but not even that well. It's just from the off-ramp. And it's not intended to bring people off the freeway to the business.
You'll be past it if you even,
Yeah.
if you even notice it.
And it's
Why
relatively
did you
small.
mention it as a gateway sign?
Just, it
General
forces
plan.
Spanish colonial revival, and we're usually a little more sensitive on gateways than we are anywhere else.
For the view. To
Yeah.
provide landscaping.
I think the fit and finish of it is in character of the building. To me, when you look, if you're going by at 60 or 70 or whatever, you're not seeing a sign, you're just seeing part of the building, to me. Because of the framing of it. So I agree with Bart, I don't think it is freeway. It's a freeway adjacent, but it certainly isn't advertising to the freeway.
The one thing to note too is that the facade and the access are off of El Presidente, and the parking structure is to the back. So, just
Yeah, we
something
can't
to
take into account what it's advertising,
Yeah.
but it's not a fast food trying to bring people off the freeway.
Yeah, I think part of staff's concern here is that the only place that you can actually read the sign from, I mean, when you're square on, is the off-ramp of the freeway. It's not advertising northbound on El Presidente. It's not advertising down Calafia or up Calafia, and it's really not directed towards southbound traffic on Presidente either. In the absence of that, we just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I'm feeling it's very much like a Chick-fil-A. That's the most
Yeah.
recent. The two restaurants that are going in off of El Camino Real exit, those are probably about the same orientation to the freeway, but again, visible
Yeah.
off the off-ramp is where you're going to see them from.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this strays much from that.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that it's logically, I think all of their traffic is coming from off of the freeway.
Yeah.
With people knowing where they're going. It's assisted living.
People
It's not-
do exit at Calafia to get to this property.
And
Right.
yeah, and that's where we believe most of the traffic would be.
Yeah, I
coming
agree
from.
with these guys that if that's all we're here to comment on, it's not
And the design.
freeway visibility.
And the design.
Okay, so I think, unless you have something else, Bart, we can go to the discussion of the design of the
Yes,
sign itself.
absolutely.
And the fact that it's a gateway, it does identify this property. But it also is important to the character of the city as a whole and to the site. And I'm curious what you guys think about the sign, but I can see it has the, some of the elements of the building, I guess, and Spanish colonial revival. But in my opinion, it doesn't really address the location or the building as a feature, as a sign. It's symmetrical. It's got, there's a lot going on, and it's just sort of angled and placed on the corner. And that's why I wanted to know about that retaining wall, because the sign itself is very static. I mean, it's a symmetrical thing. It's exactly, you draw a center line and you can basically fold it over. Which I don't think is necessary. So I'm just going to comment. You guys may not agree with me.
No.
I'm going to comment on my impression of the sign. I think there's an opportunity at that location to do something a little more interesting. That isn't so symmetrical, isn't so static. And maybe what that is there's a hierarchy even in the sign. Because when you look at the building, it's a very interesting massing that we have at that building. And I think the sign could enhance that, potentially. And this sign, though it does meet the requirements, it's the right size, it's got some of the materials. There's nothing striking about it. And I think in a gateway location, there should be more consideration, I think, about the sign, especially a monument sign. Because it's not just a sign, it's part of the site, it's part of the architecture. And we're not seeing the context of the landscape here, but I think that's an important part of it. So there needs to be a dialogue between the sign and the landscape, and even as the landscape grows. Obviously, you want it to remain visible. So we need to kind of see what's going on with the landscape here. Is there going to be some bougainvillea that's going to end up covering part of it or whatever? But I think the whole corner is important for us to consider. So, and again, hopefully that's input that has some value. I just, there's some cases where symmetry is appropriate, and I don't think this is the spot. Is it improvable? Yeah, probably is, but I think it could be improved quite a bit. What do you guys think?
That's valid input.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my first reaction to it is, that's a cool sign, fine. It's not, it's well done. I like the craftsmanship on it. I like the way you're lighting it. I think it's good. But I like what you're saying. If you wanted to make it better, I'm kind of adhering with you. It's kind of like, if you want to do it, if you add more dimension, like make those pillars a little bit more substantial, they kind of extend out. I can't tell if it's all flat. Looks flat. But if it wasn't flat.
Yeah, it's hard to see it in that view.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it wasn't flat, if it's flat, then I think that's an issue. That's something you could make dimensional. You could add
It does come out slightly, but
slightly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you pronounce that, maybe even more, make it more substantial. To me, I wish, if money was not an object, I'd say, boy, water feature would be really nice. But it is an opportunity, I think, to make a statement about that building, because I love that building. Whenever I go by it, I just always point it out to my friends or whoever I'm with. I'm like, if you want to know what Subcommittee is trying to do with its architecture standards, look at that building. That's making that. That's what it's making that kind of a statement. So to make the sign, I think, even more of a feature to the building, is an opportunity. But I agree with you. It's
I mean,
my
properties
idea is
that properties that stand out as being very well designed, all the site features connect to the architecture. And the only connection I see here is the materials. The scale is what it is, right? Because we're limited by the square
6
footage.
feet in height, unless they want to go higher, that's a different.
Yeah, so I think it's the right size. It may even be the fact that it's sort of set at an angle like that. I mean, does it have to be at a 45? So is it part of the building, site design, or is it part of, just a sign that's on the corner? That's the way it feels to me. And then, we're just being open here.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe,
not criticizing your design. per
No,
se.
yeah, the design works.
But I think there's an opportunity here, and it's an important, it's interesting, all three of our things we're looking at today are pretty important in terms of setting some precedent here in the city.
Mhm.
And we have a gateway opportunity that I think we can really do a lot more with.
Wonder if you had planners coming off the side of it or something that makes it more tied into the grandeur of the building.
Well, I would look at the landscape
Yeah.
and
And
see
there was
that
one
it's,
full
you can use landscape, you can use grade. There's a lot of things you can do to create a balanced design
Presentation.
without
Their
making it
signages
just
are
relentlessly symmetrical.
And kind of, they kind of did what
And
I
I
was talking
think
about.
you look at that building, and that kind of sets the standard
For
for
the patio,
this
for
location.
signage for them.
There's a lot of
There.
hierarchy. It's very balanced,
It's on the corner.
design,
It's a-
but it's not symmetrical at all.
No, it's not flat. You see
That goes in with the
dimensions.
property line.
So that's a good.
Shadows of light, and yeah.
They haven't built it yet, but it's being.
We're not trying to make more work.
No. But maybe making just even the these pieces more substantial. Even more dimension.
More substantial on one side, and then there's some landscape that balances it, or.
We may have an example, the patio there at the bowling alley. There's some walls coming around, and it's a corner monument sign. It's not just a sign, it's all built with the wall.
Yeah, it's like a wall, part of the
landscape.
wall, yeah, feature.
Adam's gonna try to find it, and that might be a good example. I think it
Yeah, so it's connected to the
might
site.
meet what you're talking about.
Well, ironically, we do so few monument signs in San Clemente.
That's right.
We don't have a lot of examples. I could show you a lot in Irvine, but not in San Clemente.
Well, and I think you have a good opportunity here to do something pretty special.
Yeah.
And hopefully I remember the presentation here.
Outline, okay, that's not signage.
It might even be in projects, pending projects or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
In that section of the renderings might be in that.
And what is it?
Oh, you mean in the development story map?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see if I can see anything.
My laptop would still be booting up at this point.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting is that it's that red box hanging down there is basically the size of the computer. All right, that's not what I want. Okay, all right, this is where my vision starts getting really bad. Laura, can you just tell me?
Yeah, this is the Jewish
Maybe.
model. So keep going, I don't see it. There's a Russell Car Wash, Victoria Mixed Use, Kalabada.
It's not on the thing yet.
Yes.
Chick-fil-A, West
Right here?
Artifacts.
Yeah, I think that might be it.
Yeah, Miramar
That's
Event
it.
Center and Restaurant.
That picture might just do it.
41, yeah.
Go back up to the street right there.
You're talking right this thing.
Yeah,
there
it's
we
just
go.
kind of, it's not just a sign, it's built into a wall system, and there's landscaping in front of it. And
That's what I was trying to say, like, make it part, yeah, I think that's.
it may not be the best example, but that's one that's been approved in the city.
And then I think with your tiling and your halo lighting, it would really pop.
Is that a separate?
May not be
discretionary
exactly what you see,
goal?
it is very symmetrical.
Yeah.
This one.
But the nice thing
Yeah,
about it
doesn't
is that you've got these extra, you've got almost like a wall coming off of here, and it's just all part of that.
And that whole thing is curved, it's a curved planter in front of it.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Depends
Yeah,
on
that's
the
not,
budget.
that's not like a great example, but it's closer, I think, to what we're suggesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would cost that much extra.
Okay.
So,
It's up to you.
so Mike, the design review subcommittee provided some comments. We can work with you on addressing those comments, or getting this project moving forward. As far as next steps, staff's recommendation would probably be at this point, if changes are decided to be made, to come back to the design review subcommittee.
Mm-hmm.
As an applicant, you're more than welcome to take their comments and move forward with the entire planning commission. But based on the location and comments received, it sounds like it might be in your best interest to bring this back to the design review subcommittee with some potential modifications.
I think as our chair had said, we aren't opposed to what you are presented. It meets all the criteria and all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we see an opportunity to make it a little more interesting and improve it. But, so your
Yeah,
call.
it's up to you. I mean, it's probably approvable, the way it stands. So,
No, I like, I'm representing my client and I want to achieve their objectives, but as the sign company that's involved, we want to build cool signs. That's what we like to do.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
And you do that.
thank you.
yeah, that'd be great. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And nice job
for
for
waiting.
Oh, thank you.
first time in front
Well,
of
I
us.
My first time.
We do a lot of work with the
You're
process,
welcome.
so I was
Ah,
interested to see what Amy and Ruth had to say.
Okay, so, any new business? None. Old business? None. Any oral or written communication matter?
No? Let's see, Cameron, are you going to be missing from the 28th on?
yeah,
You'll be missing in action?
yeah, I'll be leaving tomorrow and I'll be back on the 24th or 25th.
Of October.
Yes.
So
Unfortunately.
do we want to see if we can get
Well,
the
Scott,
alternate in?
I have asked Scott
he already said he would be.
if he would do it.
Well, I don't know if we have to put formally here or not.
The alternate, it's not specified in the code, but a reasonable person, I think, will understand that the alternate comes in when one of the members says that they're
And so
able.
we just want to give you the direction that he's invited and
Oh, we-
otherwise up to
Yeah.
oh, we will make sure he's in
the
attendance.
chair.
Yeah.
And he's already, I remember we talked to him.
We
He
did.
said he's fine filling in,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, perfect. So that would be 2 meetings.
Maybe.
I think it would just be the 28th and the
The 12th.
12th.
You can take off.
And
Okay.
then I'll be back if you're not going to meet on the 16th.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Mike.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I can attend the 26th.
Okay. after
28th, 12th.
quick turnaround.
Yeah, I won't have much, I mean, I can read some of the stuff online,
Yeah.
but I will be home all day the 25th to read the material.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll make a motion that we adjourn to the regular meeting of the Design Review Subcommittee to be held Wednesday, September 28th, 2022 at 3 p.m. at the Community Room, 910 Calle Negocio.
I can second that.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're adjourned.
Cool.
I should mention in October.